Working in the layers panel, we've got some options. We went over before the different arrangement of the layers, how we could manipulate the different arrangement, where the layers would be, and which one would be on top of which one. We've also got a choice to toggle the view. If we're working with this particular text bitmap here that we've got, we don't want to have a red background while we're working on it. We could toggle the view and it would disappear, not meaning that it's disappeared from the image, final image. If we were to export it or if we were to save it, the particular red rectangle would still be visible, but for now, while we're working on it, we've taken it off of our view. We've also got our selection here where we can select to work with it, and that's simply done by clicking over it. We've got our tool for locking it and unlocking it. Right now, because we have the small pencil showing, we are able to edit this particular layer that we're working with. If we want to close this layer from not being able to edit it, we finished it, we like the way it looks like, we can lock it, and this turns off our ability even to select the particular object or this particular layer that we've been working with. Layers in the layers panel, we can open up a new window, which if we want to insert a new image into the one that we were working with, we could simply select new image, and we see that it creates a bitmap image, and once again we're able to work with the ones that we were working with before. This gives us an opportunity if we want to quickly insert a particular image into it, we're able to do so this way. And we see that we've got a new image that's been created into our old image on the same layer that we were working with. We're also able to quickly adjust the different attributes as we make our selection. We see here that right now the attribute is 100% and it's normal, the same as we have in the properties window. I can adjust this to whatever amount that I want. I've got the alpha now at 44%. I've got an option to work with it where I can lighten it, I can darken it, I can change the color, hue, saturation, luminosity, I can invert it, and I can tint it. See with luminosity that this is the end result of the luminosity at 44%. I can increase and we see that it's got a luminosity effect to it. Also in the layers panel, given an option to create an entirely new layer, a new set of objects. Currently we're working with layer 1. We had one layer that we were working with. If we had a framed document or a framed image that we were working with, we would want to share it across the frames, or we don't want to share it across the frames. So right now we're not going to share it across the frames, and we're going to create layer 2. And I can go ahead and I can lock the layer 1, close it, and now I can work with layer 2. If I want to insert different objects or items into layer 2, I'm free to do so. I can change just as we were working with before, the different layering effects. I can move layer 2 underneath layer 1. So now my layer 2 is no longer in front of layer 1, it's actually behind it. And sometimes it's a good idea to rename your layers, which is simply done by double clicking on it, and it gives you an option to name the layer to whatever you want. And I also get the option to share it across the frames, so if it wasn't shared across the frames when I originally created it, I was able to do so there, where I could share it across the frames. Next option is I can select to duplicate the layer that I'm working with, which would be the background. So I'm going to head and duplicate the background. We see that for duplicating, I'm able to select a number of times that I want to duplicate it. And I'm also given an option of where I want to insert this new layer. If I want to insert it on top, before the current layer, after the current layer, or at the bottom. So right now we're just going to go with the default after. And we see that the duplicate layer has now been inserted beneath the other original layer. And I'm able to take this image and I'm able to work with it as I need to. After that, we've got share this layer. And by sharing the layer, what this means is we're able to share it now across different frames. We get a little icon that appears here That means that we're sharing this across different frames. After that, we've got single layer editing, where we can edit a particular single layer. We see here that we've selected the single layer editing, and we've gotten the blue box where we're able to edit the particular single layer. What the blue box means that we've made our selection and we're able to now move it across to the different layers as we need to. If we want to do that, if I want to move my image from background 1, and if I want to move it onto the second background, I can select, hold the mouse down, and I could just simply bring it up to the layer I want to deposit it into and release. It's an effect now dropped both images into the layer that I have background and taking it out of background 1. Our next option that's available to us is to delete a layer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete the background 1 and just select delete layer, and we see that the layer has been deleted. We've got these are the same options as we have down here, where we're able to insert or duplicate a layer. If we select this, we see that now I've inserted a layer, which is layer 2 by default, but there's nothing in there. I'm also able to add a mask if I needed to. I've got an option to add a new bitmap image if I want to, and I've got an option to delete the particular selection. So if I want to, I could delete the entire selection, or I could simply click to whatever path I want to delete. Also given an option to flatten the selection. So for this we would select two different particulars objects. We could select flatten selection, and we see that they're brought on to be in the same box here, and it's created one bitmap. So both of these objects now are flattened and they're created onto the same bitmap. Also got a quick feature where if we have something that's not visible, we're able to show all, or if we want, we can hide all. So right now we've selected to hide all. We see that all the views toggles have been turned off, and if we want to show all, we could select, and we see that the view toggles have been turned on. We're able to lock all, and we're able to unlock all. We're able to add a mask. We also have an option for thumbnail options. So we could click on this, and this just gives us the default size of our thumbnails. We can go from none to this size, depending on the size of the thumbnails that we want to create. See, now that I've created a larger thumbnail, it's made it much larger. So this is just a way that we can view it. I can make it smaller, select OK, and we see that the thumbnail has also gotten smaller. And then of course we have, for the panel options, we're able to group the layers panel with, and it gives us a choice of all the different panels, and we're able to close this particular panel group simply by clicking on it, and this has now closed this particular panel group that we're working with. Reopen it, we go to Windows and we can select layers, or we can press F2 on the keyboard, and this now reopens our panel group, and we can redock it onto the area that we were working with before. We're going to be discussing working with masking. I've combined all of them. I've flattened the layer of all the images that we were working with earlier in order to create a mask. The way the mask works, we're going to demonstrate by creating an oval shape, and we see that this is just a simple oval shape, and we've got our bitmap image behind it. And what we want to do now, we want to make a selection of both the objects that we're working with, and we want to go to modify, mask, and we want to group it as a mask. And we're going to see, once we group it as a mask, we no longer see that there's two separate objects. We see the oval shape now is kind of the only area that we can see of the original bitmap. If we want to do it the other way, what we can do is we can move the oval shape behind it, and now it's going to mask the bitmap over the oval shape. And if we go to group to mask, group as mask, we see that this area now, the bitmap area, is the mask, and the oval shape yellow is seen behind it. So this is the way that we're working with masking. I go ahead and I'm going to reverse it and select them both, and I'm going to modify them and group them as a mask. We've got an option in the layers panel. This is the mask that we've created. We've got an option to edit the mask. We're able to disable the mask and delete the mask. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the mask. We see in our properties window that we've got some properties that have opened up for the mask area, where we've got the different color and we've got the edge. If I want to feather the edge of the mask that we were working with, I'm able to do so this way, and we can see that the edge has become feathered, and we are able to see outside of our original oval area because it's just a feathered edge right now. Also able to adjust the colors of the mask, and this is just simply the same as what we were working with earlier, where we've got a darker area and we can lighten it if we want to see the area that's inside of it. We've also able to adjust the fill category that we're using, and we see that here we're able to adjust. I've selected at random here the ellipse tool, and we see the way the alpha is working with the mask, and we're able to adjust what particular part of the mask we're able to see and the alpha that we're able to see with it. To select with the stroke tool, I'm able to select the stroke color, and this is just simply the outline area of the mask. If I click off of it, we're able to see that the masked area now has a stroke effect to it. I'm going to go back to edit the mask. To adjust the mask to either a path outline or a grayscale appearance. And with path outline, we're able to show fill and stroke, where we could simply select it, and we see here now that the fill has come into effect and our stroke has also come into effect. And by clicking off of it, now we see the full effect of the stroke and the fill within the mask that we were working with. We're also able to adjust the different effects, where we've got the blending mode here, and we can make a selection and we can adjust the hue that we're going to be working with. We can adjust the saturation, we can lighten it, we can darken it, and depending on what we want it to do, we could invert the mask, and we can tint it if we had that particular option selected. We've got in our effects, we're able to adjust the color. We can adjust the fill color of it. This opens up a small window where we're able to make a selection of the particular fill color that we want to work with in the mask, and then of course we've got the alpha area that we're able to work with the fill color, allowing us a lot of options and able to work with the masked area that we were working with before. Another option we have to add a masked object, we could simply select here in the layers panel, and we can select the add mask, and we see that a small box opens up next to our object that we were working with, and we're given an option to work with this particular masked area. We've got here at 100% masking. We see that as we draw over it, just going to make it a little bit bigger here, and we see as we're drawing over it, it's 100% masking it. We can move down to 50% masking. We see that our masking ability is going down. Just going to increase the size of this so we can see it a little bit better, and we see this is 50% masking of the object that we're working with. We've got a choice to preserve the transparency area. We've got a choice to edit the size of the edge that we're working with, and we've got the texture and percentage of texture just as we do with the regular stroke tool. So now this in fact has created a masked area on top of the image that we were originally working with, and this is another way to work with masks. If you're unhappy with what you've done and you can delete the mask or you can disable the mask. If you want to go back and see the original image, you can disable the masked area and you can see view the original image. And your second choice is to disable the mask. So we're just going to select this particular object once again, and I'm going to delete the mask altogether. And then it gives me a choice whether I want to apply the mask to the bitmap before I remove it, or I just want to completely discard it, or I can cancel it if I change my mind. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to discard the mask. If I want to quickly add a masked area, if I want to have a quick fill of the masked area, I can select the paint bucket tool, and simply fill the mask. And we see that now the mask has a gradient fill, and so does our image. And this is another way to work with our mask. And I'm going to go ahead and this time I'm going to delete the mask, but I'm going to apply the changes before removing. And we see that the image now, we have no more mask on it, but the changes have been made that we did make with working with our mask. One more masking feature that we're going to be going over is going to be the paste as mask. Just simply writing some simple text, mask. And what we're going to do, we're going to go to and we're going to cut this text that we've just created. We've got a number of ways we could have done that. We could cut from over here from the different icons, or we could press Control X on the keyboard in order to cut it. Now we select the image that we want to mask, select Modify, go to Mask, and select Paste as Mask. And we'll see that the image that we originally cut is now pasted on the other image that we selected, and this is now the masked area. Of course, once again, we've got all the different properties and options that we're able to work with this particular masked area.